Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun, Dai-chan here, and you're watching the Waifu Files, a series where we discover and celebrate various anime through their lovely ladies. In this episode, we'll be covering the waifu from Persona 4, a phenomenal video game that paved the franchise's way into the HD world. I played the hell out of this game, beating it twice on PS2 and almost twice on the Vita before my save data got corrupted during a new Game Plus. I would absolutely love to see it remade using the models from Persona 4 Dancing All Night. Before we get started, consider buying this dai-chan Dakimakura from Cuddly Octopus. Celebrate your fandom with the most huggable merch ever. I can't link it directly, as it's too spicy for YouTube, but I encourage you to Google it. Without further ado, let's check out some waifu. Persona 4 tells the story of Yu Narukami, an exchange student who moves to Inaba, a small town in the Japanese countryside. Expecting life to be uneventful, he and his new friends are caught up in a murder mystery, where innocent victims die after being tossed into a bizarre TV world, the Midnight Channel. These teenagers take it upon themselves to venture into the TV, where they awaken to their persona abilities. This lets them rescue victims of the Midnight Channel and slowly uncover the truth of things. For us to do these waifu justice, we too will need to expose the truth. In other words, spoilers ahead. The killer's first victim is Mayumi Yamano, a television announcer who had an affair with the married politician Taro Namatame. When the media picked up on this story, Mayumi fled to Inaba to escape coverage. During her stay, she was assigned Toru Adachi, a junior police detective, to protect her. Sadly, this backfires. Adachi secretly viewed Mayumi's affair as treacherous and unclean. Aggressively confronting her about it, he accidentally discovered he had the power to enter the TV world, and used this power to push Mayumi through a television. There, she suffered to the shadows within, including her own, forced to endure her insecurities and suppressed feelings. Eventually, the shadows killed her, causing her corpse to emerge in Inaba, tangled up in a TV antenna. Without a persona to fight back, this was her inevitable fate. Romantic infidelity is certainly frustrating, but her circumstances were complicated, and she certainly didn't deserve to have this happen. The second victim, a student named Saki Konishi, was the first to witness and report Mayumi's body to the police. Her family life was ruined by the opening of Junes, a big box retailer that built a new location in Inaba. You see, her parents owned a local liquor store, but Junes was so successful that it ran them out of business. When Saki took up a part-time job at Junes to make ends meet, this infuriated her father. Finding a dead body on the way to school only made things worse. During their investigation, the police brought Saki in for questioning, where she was left alone with Adachi. Being a total creep, Adachi used this interrogation to hit on Saki, and when she rejected him, he retaliated by throwing her inside the TV world. Just like Mayumi, Saki too was killed by the shadows, and her corpse was discovered the next foggy morning. This becomes an inciting moment for Yosuke Hanamura, whose father owns this local branch of Junes. Yosuke had feelings for Saki, unaware of the conflict her family was going through. Yosuke and Yu Narukami team up to solve this murder mystery, and are quickly joined by Chie Satonaka, a self-conscious tomboy who wants to save her best friend Yukiko. Chie is a martial arts enthusiast, often trying to imitate the moves she sees in kung fu movies. She has a healthy appetite, loving beef bowls and steak, which can be used to easily gain her support and approval. She's also a staunch protector of Yukiko, who is often taken advantage of for her naive kindness. The two of them met as children. Yukiko found a stray puppy, but couldn't care for it due to her strict home life. Chie, on the other hand, was able to take the dog in and raise it on her behalf. After she discovers Yukiko on the Midnight Channel, Chie rushes into her friend's emotional landscape, a rose-themed castle, where she comes face to face with her own shadow. For as much as Chie protects Yukiko, she actually sees herself as the weaker one. You see, Chie's not the most effeminate girl around. The boys don't flock to her like they do with Yukiko. Her grades aren't as good, she fears failure, and she worries about her career prospects. These factors make Chie feel jealous and worthless. What she does have, however, is her physical strength, and so Chie's shadow has her thinking that her friendship with Yukiko is disingenuine, like she hangs out with Yukiko just to play the role of bodyguard, compensating for her lack of appeal and purpose. At first, Chie rejects this part of herself, causing her shadow to swell with power. But Yu and Yosuke beat it down, allowing Chie to accept part of herself she's been trying to deny. This causes her shadow to transform into her persona, Tomoe, or Tomoe Gozen, a female warrior during the Genpei War. By awakening to her true self, Chie realizes that her jealousy doesn't invalidate her friendship to Yukiko. Her insecurities are an intrinsic part of her that she'll need to deal with rather than flee from. There's nothing wrong with her leaning into her strengths, and so Chie goes on trying to protect not just Yukiko, but all of the innocent citizens of Inaba. As she helps track down the serial killer, she confronts bullies and trains to one day become a police officer. This resolve is both tested and tempered by the fact that Toru Adachi, who's supposed to be a hero of justice, is actually a selfish prick who only entered the force so he could carry a gun. Part of what you can do as protagonist is encourage Chie and point out her tremendous appeal as a tomboy. Personally, I find her way cuter and more reliable than Yukiko. As one of the girls I romanced in my many playthroughs, it's only fitting I declare Chie a certified favorite. May she be blessed with head pats and delicious meat. For as much as Chie admires Yukiko, she's also blind to the trials and tribulations of being heir to the Amagi name. Yes, Yukiko Amagi has the opportunity to inherit her family's luxurious Amagi Inn, Inaba's best ryokan. Working as one of the inn's caretakers has Yukiko developing grace and a demure temperament, which are admirable features of a traditional Japanese bride. This lifestyle is all fine and good, so long as you actually want it. While Yukiko does appreciate her life and status, she fears she has no choice but to become the inn's manager. She thinks her fate has already been determined, and nothing she can do will stop it. She's come to see herself as being trapped in a cage, like a bird without the wings to escape. When her face appears on the Midnight Channel, Taro Namatame, who also has the power to enter the TV, tries to save her from the serial killer's actions. Mistaking the TV world for a safe place, he kidnaps Yukiko and tosses her in, prompting the investigation team to rescue her. Inside, Yukiko's domain manifests as a castle, with her being the coveted princess within. Like her best friend, it seems Yukiko also feels disingenuine. Her shadow claims she's only friends with Chie, out of a hope that Chie will one day save her from inheriting the Amagi Inn. This is a part of Yukiko's true self, so her rejection of the shadow only makes it stronger. Only after accepting it does she truly grow, awakening to her persona, Konohana Sakuya, a woman who was nearly incinerated as a test of her fidelity. Yukiko realizes that her insecurities don't mean that her friendship with Chie is a false one. To an extent, all of our relationships have a transactional element to them. As for her cage, Yukiko learns that it is mostly her own imagination. She has the conviction to deny her family if she really wants to. This alone is relieving enough for Yukiko to re-examine her position. After a group of tabloid journalists threaten to slander the inn, she becomes protective and realizes she really does love the establishment. Going forward, she willfully chooses to succeed her parents, comforted by the fact that it's her choice, not her destiny. That said, if she's gonna be the manager, she'll need to master cooking, and as it stands, her dishes are demonic. Being more likely to kill than accommodate, Yukiko trains with the inn staff to better her culinary arts. Along with this, her personality blossoms, no longer suppressing her quirkier traits and sense of humor. Beneath her composed demeanor, she's actually a total goofball, and she's all the better for it. Rise Kujikawa is a top idol in Japan who goes on an indefinite hiatus to attend school and support her grandma's tofu shop in the countryside. She claims to the media that she's stepping down for health concerns, and on a mental level, I suppose that's true. Rise, Reset, or Resetchi in Japanese, is a talented girl whose charisma and enthusiasm bring her great success in the idol industry. She's able to flexibly become whatever her clients and fans need her to be in a given situation, like a social chameleon. However, after putting on so many of these different faces, Rise begins to wonder which of them is the real her. She worries that she's entirely superficial, a pessimistic reflection of their gaze upon her. Inaba, being so secluded from the mainstream, is meant to provide Rise safe haven, but instead threatens her life. She appears on the Midnight Channel and is subsequently thrown into the TV world by Namatame. Her domain takes the shape of a strip club where her shadow promises to fulfill everyone's desires. Utterly humiliated by her shadow's shameless pole dancing, Rise denies it, resulting in yet another boss fight. Ultimately, Rise casts aside her shame and embraces her shadow, accepting that she does indeed enjoy being the object of her fans' desires, promiscuous or otherwise. She awakens to her persona, Himiko, the queen of Yamataikoku, a maiden who used her sorcery to bless her people while remaining sheltered in a guarded palace. This makes Rise perfect as the investigation team's navigator, who analyzes shadows from a safe distance. Initially, Rise feared that her various roles, her faces, were merely fabrications, but comes to realize that's just not true. People can be multifaceted, and she's just better at selectively displaying parts of herself when appropriate. This means all of those parts are her true self. For as much as she enjoys her hiatus, the thought of being replaced scares her. Turns out, she wants her place in the spotlight. As a child, she was shy and got bullied for it. Becoming an idol helped her gain confidence, which she hoped would make her friends. In a way, this worked, not through the parasocial bonds with her fans, but rather as a result of her ambition to shine. Thus, Rise decides to return to being an idol after solving the murder case. To that end, Rise's a flirt and people-pleaser, willing to embrace her own fan service. I absolutely love that about her, and as a result, she's another of my certified favorites. It's a bit frustrating that, as the navigator, she's less present in battles, but that's been addressed with DLC for Persona 4 Arena, which makes her a playable fighter. Himiko was a martial artist, after all. One of the more misunderstood characters in Persona 4 is Naoto Shirogane, a prodigious young detective who moves to Inaba, hoping to put an end to the serial murders. She comes from a line of detectives, heiress of sorts to the Shirogane clan. That means her parents were both detectives, but were killed during one of their investigations. Following in their footsteps, Naoto also wants to become a detective, inspired by the escapades of Sherlock Holmes. Unfortunately, this childlike passion for solving mysteries was stunted by actually trying to work in the justice system. Despite her brilliance, the police hesitate to welcome her assistance, mostly due to her young age. Naoto worries that, more than her youth, she's not taken seriously because she's a girl. The detective world is filled with men, and all of her role models are men. She started to think that she could only become a detective by first making herself a man. Thus, Naoto reached puberty and started presenting as male. She binds her chest and wears male uniforms. The success she attains earns her the title Detective Prince. When she transfers to Yasogami High School, none of her classmates realize she's female. Naoto finds the investigation team suspicious, as it's a collection of all the students who went missing throughout the case. Before she can properly understand their situation, though, she appears on the Midnight Channel, again causing Namatame to throw her into the TV world. There, Naoto's shadow lives within an industrial laboratory as a cyborg preparing for a body-altering operation. Naturally, this reflects Naoto's insecurity about being a woman, and how until she goes through with a sex change, she will never be a real detective, but rather just a child playing the role. Her rejection of this shadow is her refusing to admit that she feels incompatible with her vision of a true detective. However, by accepting her shadow, she admits she has a genuine problem with the sexism of her occupation. She harbors doubts about her professionalism due to her biological sex, nearly succumbing to the idea that only men can be detectives. Her persona, then, is Sukuna Hikona, a male dwarf deity of healing. This could be used to argue that Naoto is truly a man deep down, but her social link proves otherwise. She is not defined by her gender, but rather her love for solving mysteries. Naoto's grandfather, pretending to be a phantom thief, provides her with mysteries so that she never loses sight of her passion. That passion doesn't change regardless of gender, giving Naoto the freedom to explore her femininity without fear. This includes using her full vocal range, wearing her female uniform, and no longer binding her breasts. Any sexism she encounters can ultimately be overcome through conviction and raw talent in her career. As I've said in older videos, this is not a rejection of trans people, but rather a rejection of gender conformity and stereotypes. Seeing this nuance play out romantically is what lets me label her another certified favorite. Instead of embracing a sexist stereotype, she chooses to fight it, not letting it define how she identifies or expresses herself. Adachi is definitely nefarious, but he's not the mastermind behind the strange occurrences in Inaba. Before that cop ever came to town, it had already been appropriated by a Japanese deity to test mankind's will. Izanami no Mikoto is the primordial mother goddess of Shintoism. She and her husband Izanagi were happy until the day Izanami died while giving birth to the fire god Kagutsuchi. Rather than vanishing, Izanami was sent to the underworld, where she remained until Izanagi came to rescue her. While Izanami went to negotiate with the underworld's god, Izanagi promised to wait for her to return. Instead, however, Izanagi broke that promise, using his comb as a torch to proceed deeper in. He discovered the underworld had decomposed his beloved, her body now filthy and covered in maggots. Enraged by his betrayal, Izanami chased her husband to the underworld's entrance, but was sealed away when her husband set a massive boulder in their path. From her side of the boulder, she vowed to take 1,000 lives every day to punish him. In return, Izanagi vowed to give life to 1,500 people each day. Despite this age-old tale, the goddess Izanami still wishes to guide humanity and uses Inaba to observe what humans most want. Incarnated as a humble gas station attendant, she created the TV world and gave select individuals the power to enter it. Unfortunately, she is heavily influenced by Adachi's actions, leading her to believe humanity wishes for a great fog to flood the world and turn them into shadows. We obviously disagree, causing Izanami to serve as our true final boss. She's a phenomenal villain whose design is genuinely terrifying. During Persona 4 Golden, we learn that Izanami incarnated in various forms. Aspects of her divine being manifest as separate individuals. One such aspect is Kusumi no Okami, who was tasked with observing humanity and relaying its wish to Ame no Sagiri, the deity of fog. Should humanity reject the fog, it is Kusumi's duty to disperse it at the cost of her own life. Despite this mighty task, Kusumi no Okami takes human form as Marie, an amnesiac teenager who's lost and alone. She first appears in the Velvet Room as one of Igor's assistants, but she's not actually one of their attendants. In truth, she wants to venture out into the world and learn more about it. Thus, she frequently visits Yu Narukami and the investigation team, which in turn inspires her to write poetry. She's easily embarrassed by it, letting her emotions flow out when flustered. Before long, she becomes a part of the crew, making all manner of fun memories with them. This joy ends, however, when the investigation team defeats Ame no Sagiri. Awakening to her role as Kusumi, Marie absorbs the fog into herself and tries to suppress it. After all, she's the aspect of Izanami that wishes to protect humanity, but alas, the fog proves too overwhelming. No longer able to stay with the party, Marie flees to the Hollow Forest, her own space within the TV world. There, she plans to sacrifice herself to save her newfound friends. When Yu discovers this, he and the team venture into the Hollow Forest to save her. Their combined effort staves off the fog while forging a permanent link between Marie and the real world. Ultimately, the various aspects of Izanami fuse together, and Marie reincarnates as Mariko Kusumi, a weather forecaster who can actually control the weather. She remembers the protagonist and boldly declares her love for him on a live broadcast. As a character, Marie suffers from being injected into an already completed story. Beyond her optional dungeon and social link, she's unable to play a more dramatic role in the story. Still, she's hella cute and sexy, and I welcome her inclusion, even if she had to be retconned into existing events. When Yu Narukami moves to Inaba, he stays with his uncle Ryotaro Dojima, a detective and single father to Nanako Dojima. She is a brave and innocent child who laments the death of her mother Chisato. When Nanako was in preschool, her mom was killed in a hit-and-run accident. To make things worse, her father became hell-bent on catching the driver, plunging deep into his job rather than comforting his daughter. In that regard, having Yu around the house is a blessing, as Ryotaro's often too busy with work to spend time with Nanako. While she's shy at first, it isn't long before Nanako starts referring to Yu as her big bro. Even though she's in elementary school, Nanako takes care of the house, doing laundry and preparing food. She knows not to answer the door for strangers, and carries a positive attitude about pretty much everything. Left alone at home, she spends a lot of time watching TV, and gets excited whenever the commercial for Juness comes on. She loves singing along to its jingle. Her favorite show is Magical Detective Loveline, and to entertain herself during the summer, she dresses up as the titular character and spies on her big bro's suspicious behavior. Of course, what she wants most is to be with her dad, and for the two of them to mourn Chisato's death together. Just when the two of them come to an understanding, poor Nanako is kidnapped by Namatame. Within the TV world, her purity manifests as a heavenly paradise, the kind she believes her mom went to. Namatame thinks he's saving her, and is totally unaware that continued exposure to the TV world will make her deathly ill. Thus, even after being rescued, Nanako passes away in the hospital. Thankfully, if the investigation team spares Namatame and identifies the true culprit, Nanako is mysteriously revived. Perhaps she was cursed by the fog and responded to our pursuit of the truth. Perhaps Teddy, being a self-actualizing shadow, had something to do with it. Either way, Nanako and her dad go on living happily. That's it for main characters. Let's move on to some waifu from the game's social links. First is Hisano Kuroda, an old woman whose husband died from illness, likely Alzheimer's. In his final years, he began to forget about her, and remaining by his side during this time was extremely painful. To that end, Hisano found relief in her husband's death, feeling like he truly died way earlier. Out of guilt, she refers to herself as Death. Trying to forget her past due to the pain it brought her, she tosses her favorite comb into the Samegawa floodplain. The protagonist, however, notices the comb is stuck to a massive boss fish, and spends his summer learning to catch the damn thing. At the summer festival, Yu returns the comb to Hisano, rekindling the feeling of when her husband first gave it to her. She realizes she never stopped loving him, and that the good times far outweigh the bad. Enlightened, she now spends her days basking in those pleasant memories. It's surprisingly touching. While working part-time at a daycare, Yu meets Eri Minami, a young woman from the city who moved to Inaba to marry her new husband. She struggles raising her stepson Yuta, who refuses to accept her as his new mom. By spending time with Yuta, we pick up on his interests and relay them to Eri. Slowly but surely, the two of them form a closer relationship, and Yuta even gets protective of his stepmom. Turns out, Eri was afraid to face her stepson directly, relying on TV shows and spiritual lectures to teach her how to be a mom. What she really needed was to truly get to know him and see the world from his perspective. Working at Inaba Municipal Hospital is Sayoko Uehara, a flirtatious nurse who fears abandonment. Over time, her desire to help people in need became overshadowed by the fact that, whether they live or die, her patients will ultimately leave her. Her motivation has been spoiled by loneliness. Coupled with this is a sense of shame, as she fell in love with another doctor who was already married. The fallout from this affair had her leaving her previous hospital to nurse at Inaba. One of her former patients, whom she had grown especially close to, passes away, and to distract herself from the loneliness, she overworks herself. Yu, as a part-time janitor at the hospital, helps her realize her faults and rediscover her passion for helping others. At school, Ebihara is a gorgeous, yet troubled student. She's the manager of the school's athletic clubs, a role she only accepts to bolster her attendance for graduation. She's a prima donna with a sour attitude, often rejecting people's love confessions if they aren't attractive enough. Ironically, this is because she herself fears rejection, and is devastated when her own crush is unrequited. She contemplates jumping off the school's roof, only to be pulled back by the protagonist. Taking his kindness for granted, she tries to use him as a surrogate boyfriend, while trying to become the kind of girl her crush likes. Ai eventually confesses that she used to be fat, bullied by her peers as Piggy Hara, and she's been trying to overcome that stigma ever since. She was trying to change herself superficially to gain others' approval, never actually listening to them. Eventually, she learns to be more honest with herself. Ayane Matsunaga is a member of Yasogami High's symphonic band. Despite dreaming of becoming a talented musician, she's too timid and lacks the skills she needs. She rarely makes the cut to perform with the band in public. To make things worse, she's also short enough that people mistake her for an elementary or middle school student. Her family can't afford the flute she wants to play, so she's stuck playing the trombone instead, which she feels is awkward given her short stature. When the band's main trombone player gets injured, Ayane works hard to serve as his replacement. She overcomes her insecurities, but before she can prove herself on stage, that player recovers and returns to the band. Even though nobody asks her to, Ayane chooses to step down and relinquish the role to him, only to immediately regret her decision. Moving forward, she vows to be more assertive and selfish, in a good way. With newfound confidence, she plans to study abroad after graduation. Provoked by the serial murder incident, a copycat killer winds up murdering the protagonist's homeroom teacher. To replace him, Yasogami High hires Noriko Kashiwagi, an arrogant MILF who feels the need to prove she's more attractive than her female students. She flirts with the boys in her class while insulting the girls, and that desperation proves to be a major turnoff. She's irresponsible, shirking her duties as a teacher to instead relax and fulfill her own desires. This includes booking the students at a love hotel when visiting Tatsumi Port Island. As a result, she loses her own beauty pageant to Naoto, who's too embarrassed to even step out on stage in a swimsuit. In one sense, I pity her, as there definitely is a stigma in Japan against older women being out of their prime. She honestly doesn't look that old, but it's a fool's game trying to compete against teenage girls for the approval of teenage boys. She's a walking HR violation. The only student Kashiwagi doesn't consider a serious rival is Hanako Ohtani, a morbidly obese girl whose self-indulgence spans both food and her inflated ego. She'll eat just about anything, even mysterious food X, the poisonous curry Chie and Yukiko made for their camping trip. Despite this, it seems she has admirers at school who vote for her as much as the other girls during the beauty pageant. Regardless, she values herself too highly, acting like she's a total prize, only to be shocked when she doesn't win. She and Kashiwagi lick each other's wounds, figuratively mind you, by staying together at the Amagi Inn. Admittedly, while I'm not even remotely attracted to her, I suppose I can understand when folks complain that she's being used for cheap comedic relief. Even when I laugh at it, I have to admit it's pretty fucked up. This time around, the Velvet Room's main attendant is Margaret. She assists Igor in guiding the protagonist, helping out by keeping track of social links and fused personas in her compendium. She's older and more mature than her siblings Elizabeth, Theodore, and Lavenza. Margaret is always sure to present herself as professional and composed, rarely ever letting slip her silly sense of humor. As such, she's critical of Elizabeth's decision to leave the Velvet Room of her own accord. Eventually, though, Margaret understands that all visitors of the Velvet Room, including its attendants, will one day journey to discover their true selves. To better understand her own freedoms, Margaret challenges Yu to a duel, demonstrating her tremendous strength as a Persona user. This helps her learn that if Yu were in a similar situation to Persona 3's protagonist, she would likely emulate her sister's actions. When it's time for them to part, she has Yu close his eyes to steal a kiss, which she admits is sinful for her job. Something tells me Igor wouldn't really care, given her otherwise flawless loyalty. The original game features Aiya, a restaurant famous for its rainy day mega beef bowl challenge. The anime takes this a step further by introducing Aika Nakamura, the restaurant's delivery girl. With an unassuming expression, she'll show up anywhere, at any time in the story to deliver ramen, nikudon, and other delicious meals. She also appears to be a student at Yasogami, who works part-time at the Amagi Inn. She must have absolutely no free time. It's ridiculous, and Aika's mainly a gag character, but I can't really complain so long as she's cute. Exclusive to Persona 4 Dancing All Night is Kanami Mashita, or Kanamine, an idol from the same agency as Rise. During Rise's hiatus, Kanami rose in popularity, theming her idol career around food. Compared to Rise, Kanami is more self-conscious about her body, and seems to be harboring a great burden. This is because, as a child, she went to audition at Takura Productions and found the corpse of Yuko Osada, an idol who hung herself with a long yellow ribbon. This was especially tragic, as it was Yuko who inspired Kanami to become an idol in the first place. The trauma from this had Kanami block out this painful memory. Doing so caught the interest of Mikuratana no Kami, a manifestation of the Sea of Souls, or collective unconscious. Mikuratana sought humans who desired convenient bonds with others, but without pain and suffering. During Kanami's Love Meets Bonds festival, Mikuratana gathers shadows from people into its domain, the Midnight Stage, using a cursed video to lure them in. Victims include Kanami's fellow team members, their producer, and the investigation team. Kanami is only able to save them after uncovering her suppressed memories and proving that true bonds involve pain to some extent. Like everything in Persona that they've tried to teach us, you have to accept both the good and the bad for what they truly are. With the encouragement of her friends and fans, Kanami breaks free of Mikuratana's control, allowing the festival to reach a peaceful conclusion. Kanami's fellow idols are a unit called Kanamine Kitchen. They, along with Rise, are set to perform in the LMB festival under their producer Kyouka Ochimizu. When Mikuratana tries to pull Kanamine Kitchen into the Midnight Stage, Ochimizu pushes Kanami out of the way, getting transported in her place. Within, Mikuratana tries to teach them that bonds without pain can only be achieved by conforming to what others want of them. Through dancing, however, the investigation team is able to appease the shadows and resist being made into puppets. Each of the girls gets a chance to overcome their insecurities and break free from the Midnight Stage. Sumomo Ujima, for instance, was a girl who grew up in a humble countryside village. She despises when people view her as frail or helpless due to her small size, like some kind of innocent doll. Tomoe Sayama, the oldest of the group, yearns to protect the people she loves, but fears she can't do so unless she first loves herself. She confronts her anti-social nature, which emerged from being mocked for her hobbies. Tamami Uesugi suffers from self-doubt. Even though she works her ass off, she doesn't think she can match up to her mother, who used to be a famous actress. Nozomi Nakahara is the youngest of the group. While her fans see her as the confident Prince Nozomi, she actually suffers from social anxiety, fearing others won't accept her unless she puts on a facade. Ochimizu manages these girls, but does so with cold disdain. This is because she used to manage Yuko Osada, and takes advantage of how the public blames her for Yuko's suicide. By intentionally playing into the role of a strict, relentless manager, she can garner sympathy for her idols. Sadly, this has taught her that one's true self doesn't matter, that connections between people are built around superficial lies. Her attitude only fuels Mikuratana's ambition, but in the end, she realizes she was mistaken about human nature, and vows to be the more likable person she truly is. In all, we've just covered a total of 24 waifu. This game series is truly awesome, my second favorite in the Persona series. If you haven't yet, you're best playing Persona 4 Golden on Steam, and Persona 4 Dancing All Night on PS4. If you don't have dozens of hours to spare, its two anime series are also incredibly faithful to the game's plot. Before we wrap things up, be sure to check out my full Waifu Files playlist for many more recommendations. Feel free to use the comments below to let me know which anime you'd like to see covered in a future video. Catch you later!
Thanks for watching.
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all our anime lore, discussions, and Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or a YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like spicy exclusive vids and early access.
As always, celebrate your fandom. I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters: Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, The Nonchalant Ostrich, Otaku Mom, Jens Bauman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Free Brick, Olympian Doll, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Lunar Works, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Zamas Autonomous, Yuki Eidos, Scout, Crow Calum, Saul Soto, Tristan Riggin, Major, Mayfu Mato, Caitlin P, Sogai CH, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Jonathan Padua, Kengo X77, Hersha of E-Rated Hands, Alistair Bernadotte, and Akakaze Yume. Thank you all so much.